On Kill Bill, I was hired as assistant director.
I feel that filmmaking energy coming out of the camera and I get fired up.
Warm up the job before they can talk.
No fighting, remember the studio. Tarantino, Yuan Heping, and to see them work together, it was just fascinating. And
as a director, what's the most important job in your opinion?
Bruce Lee, actually. His father was a Chinese peking opera singer.
I always tell my cast that acting is a full-time job. You need to be mentally and physically prepared every single day.
Hello everyone, today I'm thrilled to welcome Daming Chen, a director, writer and actor whose career spans some of cinema's most iconic action moments, including working on Kill Bill's Crazy 88 scene with Yuan Ping, the fight choreographer from The Matrix. I've had the honor of working with him on his latest film, Unspoken, hitting cinemas this December 2025. Daming is one of the rare directors who bridges East and West, crafting films that are fully Chinese in heart, yet completely American in style, execution and production quality. If you're an aspiring filmmaker, actor, or action designer, I want you to listen closely. Daming holds the key to the US and China market. You will understand that when you see his film starring Zhang Hanyu, one of China's Golden Horse winners for Best Actor, which is the equivalent of the Oscars. If this episode is anything, it's a blueprint of how to become an actor, how to become a big-time director, get your film financed, and work with the best of the best. Today, we're going to uncover how top directors think about action, AI, and film financing. Before we dive in, for anyone looking to train like a professional actor, learn movie-style martial arts and fight work for film, get insider skills that you won't find anywhere else, check out Movie Martial Arts, the course at www.moviemartialarts.com. Daming, it's an honor to have you on Movie Martial Arts. How are you doing today, sir?
Hello, everyone. I'm Daming Chen. I'm doing good. I'm in Shanghai. This is October, but still very hot.
Roger that.
Besides that, it's all good.
Cool. Yeah, this morning I woke up and it was actually freezing. I'm glad you're still a little bit warm over there in Shanghai. Daming, let's kick things off with the hero's journey. What made you into the man that you are today? Where did your journey start and why did you choose film?
Well, I went to the Beijing Film Academy, focusing mostly on the study acting, we study filmmaking. Mostly our focus was on the European movies, being cinema. My favorite movie are, we study French New Wave, the Italian New Realism movie, Godard, Breathless. We get to watch a lot of American movies during that time as well. Mostly Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, Coppola's The Godfather, Stanley Kubrick's 2001 Odyssey. All those great masters has major influence on my filmmaking career. And I think that's the environment provided during that time. But I started off as an actor. I went to the States in 1991 to Sundance. One of the short movies I acted in was selected by Sundance. So that's where it really opened my mind about American indie movies. So I went to LA, started my acting career for a while. I'm just so fed up with being an actor, auditioning all the time, try to get the roles. My true passion was still cinema, filmmaking. So I decided to come back to China and working on my script and raise the money and made my dream come true.
You always wanted to be an actor, yes, before anything, or it was always directing?
Well, I went to the Chinese opera school when I was 11, and I think that's, stage performance. I always want to become an actor. That was actually my passion. And, naturally want to study acting. When I went to the Beijing Film Academy, actually, I studied acting. That was my major. And later on, I switched to directing and writing.
So you started off in Chinese opera. That's epic. That creates such a unique DNA that I guess will go into all of your films. Do you feel that some of that ends up in your film in some way?
Well, whatever you do, right? I mean, thinking about being a filmmaker, writer, director, whatever you do, you benefit from that experience. And the thing I do benefit from the opera school training is the discipline. Being an opera singer, discipline is very important. You get up at 5:30 in the morning, you practice, you train. If you don't get up, your teacher hits you. They just have a stick hit you. You just have to get up. And I think on stage, a Well, really, I was too young to understand the opera, and eventually I quit. I didn't really become a Chinese opera. But the training, the martial arts training, the acrobatics, all those training, really providing a great foundation for being an actor, also being a filmmaker. I get to understand the structure of the opera and performance on stage. Chinese opera very similar to the Greek tragedy with all the archetypes. Filmmaking is all about characters. Many filmmakers and actors in China have a Chinese opera training, including Jackie Chan, including Bruce Lee, actually. His father was a Chinese Peking opera singer.
So then, did you have similar training to Jackie Chan and Yuan Wuping and all those guys that went through opera school?
We did exactly the same kind of training, and we all have one master. You also study literature, you study writing, and it's slightly more formal. And we also studied a modern Chinese opera, not only the traditional Chinese opera, also the modern part of opera. I think that's slightly a little bit different.
I think that's an entire podcast episode in itself. You came back to China and you worked on the China side of Kill Bill in the Crazy 88 sequence, one of the most iconic action sequences ever. Can you take us behind the scenes? What was it like being a part of that process with so many crazy martial artists and Yakuza running around with samurai swords on set?
I was, during that time, I was shooting my first feature film, and I was waiting for the transferring of the sound. During the time, it takes days to transfer all the film footage. I decided to work with, on Kill Bill. I was hired as assistant director, but mostly to, helping out on set, translating, helping. I was actually very close to Tarantino, right next to him. And we actually met in 94. I was helping Sundance set up an event in Beijing in 1994. We brought Pulp Fiction to China, screened Pulp Fiction first time in China. So that's how we met the first time. When I was working for Kill Bill, but mainly is exactly like what you said, the 88 crazy, the whole fighting scene. Tarantino called it Crazy 88, related to a club bar we used to go to all the time. It's called 88. And because the street number is 88 in Beijing, that's where we go all the time after shooting, right? We'll go have a drink, hang out there. I do believe that was where Tarantino came up with the name for Crazy 88. So the whole Crazy 88, they call the House of Blue, was shot in China, in Beijing, instead of Japan. We built a whole set at the Beijing Film Studio backlot. It was really interesting to see first time for me. I mean, working as an assistant director, it was a very tough shooting because the communications, right? You have American crew members, Chinese crew members, Japanese. But at the end of the day, I think it went really well. I think because of Tarantino, he's such a passionate filmmaker. He's very general towards everybody. He's always welcoming, always saying thank you in Chinese. I think ultimately is the soul of the movie, right? Movies is very tough to shoot. As long as you have the director has a strong personality that cheer everybody up, that the whole thing start changing. Build a set literally for that scene. The whole, we had the snow fighting, remember the Lucilio in the snow garden, and the whole set was, built in Beijing.
So the Snow Garden is also shot in Beijing.
It was all shot in Beijing. So to see working with Tarantino, Yuan Heping, and to see them work together, it was just fascinating. And you watch all those masters do their job. I think Tarantino was also well prepared. I always remember hanging out with them, going to, he called me up, say, hey, come with me. Went to the, the set. He brought his own little camera. He started shooting. It was probably the first time for Tarantino as well to shoot a kung fu martial art movie, sword fighting, martial arts and everything. So he was really well prepared, just seeing him, watching him with the camera, doing everything. I try to be the stunt guy, do something, say, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? He just filmed it. When we start filming, he knows exactly what he wanted to have, and he just knows exactly. And you have a Bob Richardson, one of the best cinematographer, being there. I do think I have to say, being a filmmaker, to seeing someone so humble, it was such a nice feeling. So easy to work with Tarantino. My favorite actor, Gordon Liu, was there.
Yeah, Gordon Liu.
And he was a, icon, right? He's like, my icon from the 70s, when I was young.
Perfect.
But see, Gordon came on set with his manager. It's so classy. It's so classy because he sort of represented
that time. They all dress up, they're formally. His manager behaved like a Bruce Lee's movie, Enter the Dragon type of character, walk on set. Extremely humble, extremely nice. The humility, such a major star from the 70s came on set, being so nice and humble. That was very nice.
And he did so great in the film as well, didn't he?
He was a brilliant. He played two roles. He played the master Pai Mei, and he also played the one of the bodyguards. He literally played two roles. That role actually is supposed to be played by Tarantino. You know that, right? And Tarantino actually want to play Pai Mei. He wanted
really
character. Yeah.
Really, Tarantino was going to play Pai Mei.
I know. Yeah. Eventually, I guess he changed his mind. So okay, I was too busy. It wasn't a big budget movie. I think it was time consuming. That was the reason they shot the movie in China, to save money. And eventually he gave that role to Gordon Liu. I think it was a better choice, smart choice.
I think it's a great choice. He did so well. The White Lotus Clan character in Kill Bill, super famous. He's across many different Chinese films, right? You can see the legend of Pai Mei everywhere. So he's got his own famosity as a character in the universe of Chinese film culture and history. But I think that representation just is the best. And Gordon Liu, and the fact that he played two roles. For me, Gordon Liu is also a hero, I guess, just like you. Yeah, to see him play two roles, I'm lighting up with energy now, just remembering all the beautiful sequences from the movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I want to ask you, what's from that whole experience, seeing all these different masters? You have Gordon Liu, Yuen Woo-ping, and you have Quentin Tarantino and yourself all in the same room. And I know you have Yuen Woo-ping's, or Yuen He-ping in Chinese, Yuen Woo-ping for the foreign people listening, the international crew. We call him Yuen Woo-ping, but in China, he's called Yuen He-ping, or we call him Baye. So what's the most important lesson that you took away from working with the whole crew? That's such a dream team, yeah?
I learned from what the Tarantino tried to do, his vision, right? I know his vision. He's very specific about every detail, even the swords. What kind of swords this guy needs to use? Is he doing the Chinese martial arts, wushu style, or a Japanese samurai style? So he has a clear mind what he wanted to have. I remember Sword supposed to be with whose character was that?
Was it Michael Jai White?
Michael Jai White. God damn it, I'm losing my memories.
You mean you killed my master Damo, I'm going to kill you.
So Michael was actually in the movie. Unfortunately, the movie is like always like that. You shoot a movie, you have all those characters. Eventually, the movie is too long. You have to cut something, right? You have to cut.
But I love that scene. I watch it all the time on YouTube.
So anyway, he's supposed to be doing the kung fu stuff, right? He was supposed to be holding a Chinese sword. So I remember going through all the props with all the different options for the sword. What I learned from this movie, you really need to be prepared. One thing, that movie took much longer than we had expected. During the time of the Hong Kong style, they really prefer more spontaneous moments. Go on to the set and being there and feel it first, which is also very nice. You need to do that, That can also drag longer time. I think later, the new approach from 8711, that they're really good at them shooting previous. It saves a lot of time. Whatever you do, you need to have a stunt team. And you need to communicate with the stunt team, tell them what you want, and you need to be prepared. I'd rather being prepared than just go on to set to, being spontaneous, because most of the time you don't have the budget. If you're Tarantino, that's a different story, right? You can do whatever he wants to do. I need to be prepared. Because I don't have the time. I don't want to create a panic, mood on set. Didn't know what to do, because a lot of the time everyone's waiting for you, particularly shooting Unspoken, as a union film. So you have the first AD, the producer, and you're constantly, standing there, make sure you do everything on time. So you need to be prepared. So that would be my suggestions for filmmakers.
Fantastic. Yeah, preparation is key, yeah? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Daming, let's switch it up. Let's jump over to your career. You're about to have your big feature film starring Zhang Hanyu in cinemas this December 2025. You shot the film in Canada. It looks like you shot the film in the coldest part of the world. In the movie, I've seen the movie. Thank you very much for that, by the way. It looks like the cold is terrible. And you shot it during COVID, which is even more impressive. How did you do it?
The cold environment was a part of the film. So I always knew that. The reason we shot the movie in Canada is because we want to save money, right? We do get the rebate from the Manitoba government we get 40%, quite a bit of money. My balcony, has like almost like a 1 meter thick of a snow. And shooting in the wintertime is really extremely rough because the daytime is shorter. The actors, everything, you need to be careful because they get injured. Remember the whole the crime scene taking place in this forest?
That's the one that I think of, yeah.
Yeah. It was -40. It was freezing cold.
That is so cold.
I know we had our AC with a blow dryer has to blow dry the lens the whole time. Otherwise, the focus didn't work anymore. Very challenging. But on the other hand, you can't go wrong with the snow. It looks fantastic, very cinematic. And you put the actors there. I mean, one thing you cannot fake, breath coming out of your mouth around when you talk. That you cannot replace. That's where the actors, they can feel it. They feel like they're even, can't even, their mouth, like almost like they have to warm up the jaw before they can talk. The feeling, also you drive everywhere because the car driving has the pipe, right? The steam coming out of the pipe. We have the one scene where there's a steam coming out of this pipe, just like a Martin Scorsese New York, type of movie. It was visually stunning. You cannot replace that. Literally, that's called atmosphere. When you shoot a movie, that's part of a cinematic feeling of it. The atmosphere, I call it. So, I think it's definitely paid off at the end of the movie.
And what was it like, some of the challenges with COVID? Were there restrictions? How did you shoot a feature film during COVID?
We had to add an extra budget just for COVID test. I think 3 times a week we do a test. Everyone has to wear a mask. And I didn't even know what people look like because everyone's wearing mask. And I had a double mask. I had to get my booster shot just in case something goes wrong, because everybody can go wrong except me and my actor. Even me, I can still be, I can still have it, but I have to take 5 days off. At least I can probably watch everything, monitor, remotely. All my ADs, they all had it. So except me, my DP, my actor, and my first AD. So we were lucky to have at least my first AD being there. But 2 second ADs were all contaminated, had to stay home for 5 days. And it was very tough.
Wow. Okay. That's
life,
tough, man.
Life and death situation.
Crazy. Okay. How long did it take to get Unspoken from your mind into the real world, then on film, and then to cinemas for release? What were the biggest challenges you faced during that process?
It was time consuming because that was my first union film. We shot in the States. It was part of the unions. And we worked with the SAG. I had to join the DGA for that, Canadian DGA. Biggest challenge for me was the time consuming. We have 12 hours, right? But the daylight is so short, we may not be able to finish. Environment, the weather, we have a short. I think another challenging for me during shooting was the communication, because we have 3 language. Zhang Hanyu doesn't speak English. Chinese actor doesn't speak English. But the whole reason we created a sign language in the movie is for that reason. So our character can go to the States through sign language. And
so you had like signals or something that you would have him use on set?
One of the characters is deaf. His daughter is deaf. And I think that part of the communication, particularly with working with the deaf actors, was the hardest. In the wintertime, I need to communicate through a translator. Translator has to using another translator. And we had 2 translators just for that. There's one scene we had a full room with all the deaf actors. And that was the toughest shooting day ever in my lifetime. Try to communicate, try to get my feeling, my concept to everyone, try to tell them what the character is about, I try to direct them. And I had to force myself to learn some simple sign language, which is, I think everybody should learn sign language. It's probably the best tools to communicate, much better than verbal language.
Yeah, it's very quick and very efficient, right? You have no ways to say everything is direct. So then how long did it take to get Unspoken out of your mind and into cinema? Like, give me a time frame, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
It took me 2 or 3 years to write the script while I was pitching a different project to a different investor. Story about a crime story, about a detective. And all of a sudden this idea popped up. I said, what about the characters about a father who lost his daughter and a daughter who lost a father. They both try to resolve a case. Father going to the States, going to an unknown place to identify his daughter's body, and ultimately with the help of a young girl to, resolve the case. But the focus is about communication, about the unspoken feeling of a Chinese father, their relationship with their daughter, particularly with the Asian American, particularly, during the time I just became a father. My older daughter was born. It's also during the time against the background of the Asian hate crime was rising. And so I decided just write the script. So that's why I hired an American writer, came from the smaller town, conservative town, and that's why I got Peter to work with me on the script.
How long was principal photography?
It took a slightly longer time because of the COVID. So total 35 days in Canada, in Winnipeg, and we shot 7 more days in China. We were quarantined for 3 weeks in Shanghai. Shanghai was locked down.
And going into action a little bit, action sequences are really complex. How do you as a director collaborate with your choreographers, stunt team, and actors to get it right? What are some tips you can give us?
Being a martial artist myself, I want this movie to be gritty. I want this movie to be, the fighting scene to be realistic. I don't want to design it. A certain type of movie, you can tell it's so designed. But I want this part to be real. Because, the father is not a martial artist, right? So I want the scene to be real. Since I told the stunt coordinator that's what I wanted, and he studied the character, he came up with his own idea, and he did all the previous and showed it to me. I'm happy with it. We found this a stairwell inside a university. It was really old, over 200 years old or something. And it was very confusing. The whole set is like a spiral. Stairwells, you get lost. I came up with the idea. I said, well, instead of shooting gun battle scene in the hallway, let's shoot it in the stairwell. It created a kind of confusing atmosphere, which is I really loved. You could improvise a little bit, but you have to be prepared. And I think that's probably something I was quite happy about the action scene in the movie.
Great. I want to switch it up a little again. I want to ask you a random question. As a director, what's the most important job in your opinion?
I think the most important part of the whole movie is, number one, you get the script done. You need to choose the right project and choose the right script. And you need to choose your actor. I think your actor is so important. What kind of actor you want to go for, right? I do believe you get the right actor to play the character, you have success. You cast the wrong actor, it just, ultimately you're going to fail for sure. That's why I understand why Coppola shooting the Apocalypse Now, he switched actors in the middle of the movie. And because he knows the character has to be right. Doesn't matter if you're a good actor or not, or not. You have to be right for the role. If you get that right, you get all the cast right, then your movie is done. You get a great actor, they watching them perform, like Zhang Haiyu. You don't need to do much, You can focus on other stuff, what kind of shots you want to have, how you design the shots. And I think that's quite important. It's a visual language you need to know before everything. Whenever you do movie, you need to have you took a scene, right? You write down your shot list. You really need to know which is the most important of the scene you want to shoot and what's the key frame you wanted to have. But one thing I always do is to have my key frame. The key frame is exactly what you want to have. I think every scene, you need to have a couple of key frames. Other stuff, I sometimes leave it to the DP and leave it to the actors, but I do follow the kind of a principle.
So the most important thing, the biggest part of the director's job, the takeaway that I took from you is, first of all, script. You got to get the script done. Then it seems like what's really important for you is choice and selection. You got to choose the right actor. You got to make sure the story works with you as a storyteller. You have to also lock your key frame. You can be flexible on certain things, but when you go to set inside your mind, your pre-design, whatever it is, you make sure you nail your key frame. Beautiful. Great takeaways. I want to ask you 2 very fun questions. You get to give me 1 answer, 1 sentence. Okay, here they are. What's your favorite Chinese film and why? Go.
Gotcha. I think Farewell My Concubine.
Okay, cool.
Farewell My Concubine.
Beautiful, good. Okay, next question.
So my second one as well. I mean, actually, I love them equally. Fairly My Concubine is probably my favorite movie.
Okay.
Because opera singer, the movie about opera singer, I love, being an opera singer myself. I can relate it to that movie more.
Beautiful. Okay, now here we go. What's your favorite American film and why?
A Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver. Wow, explain that. Why do you love that?
That was probably my first experience watching an American movie from the New York style, we call it. And I just loved Robert De Niro in that movie. And I still remember the scene he was talking to himself in the mirror. And I remember when I was watching that movie, I don't feel like this guy's acting. The way how Martin Scorsese is shooting it, that's where I always liked about the spontaneous moments of shooting a film, of, things come out of your actors. It's so real. That kind of a thing, when you shoot a movie, right, you design the shots. You may not always get what you wanted to have. You lose something out of your script, but you do gain something out of the spontaneous moments. The improvisation out of your actor, out of your camera movements. I learned it from Kurosawa, which is another great master I loved, is you have a camera, you can tell your B camera operator, just shoot whatever you want to shoot. Just, you have your freedom. I tell my DP as well, that just, you have the freedom to shoot something. Sometimes you don't know, you catch something out of the blue. And you'll be surprised in Unspoken how many shots I took from my B camera. My B camera went on the street to shoot whatever you want to shoot. Just go ahead. I don't care. Whatever you want to shoot. The beauty shot of the city came out of that B camera. I leave the camera on for a while. I don't really call it a cut. I just tell my DP to leave it. Don't cut it. Just let it run for a little bit longer. And many times you'll be surprised. What came out of it. And after the moment they're done with the scene, they're sort of waiting for you to call cut, and they just feel a bit of uncomfortable. They look around, they turn around, they look at things. But that's the moments I wanted to have. That's kind of moments you can use it for a lot of different reactions. Because that moment, the awkwardness, you cannot act. If you want to act, you can't get that kind of awkward moments out of acting. Has to be real.
So just keep the camera rolling, yeah? I want to ask you as well, the inspiration for Unspoken, you mentioned before, Asian hate crime is really big. Essentially, I guess the question really is, what is the major inspiration?
But the whole story, I wanted to really focus, it's not about what's really going on. It's not about Asian hate. Asian hate is the fact in the background. The whole story, we really wanted to focus on the father-daughter relationship. A Chinese father, they don't like to show too much their love. They don't show it, they do it. That's the kind of a story about Lucy's character. He always grudges against her own father. When she was young, she never understood why her father doesn't behave like American father. Until these days, I have never hugged my parents because I didn't grow up with a culture like that. I still don't hug them. I hug my in-laws, but I don't hug my own parents. But I do remember I remember one time I was leaving for college and my parents were sending me off at the train station. Just when the train leaves, we just wave hands and say goodbye. And, the feeling, it was the sadness that I cannot hug them because of the culture I grew up, we don't show any kind of affection. It was very hard. It's why Asians are not really open to that. I mean, not just the Chinese culture, Japanese, same thing. I think the younger
to
generation
show affection
is different. To show affection, exactly. Myself being a father, have a daughter, the worries I have about, my daughter getting older, eventually leaving home, they're going to college. I think I could only write a story like that when I became a father.
Fatherhood. Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so your film is doing quite well. It went to Brussels, the International Festival of Fantasy Film. You took first place there for the Black Raven competition. The big one, I guess, would be the Shanghai International Film Festival. That's a massive festival. You won Anticipated Film of the Year award. When you win those awards, what does that recognition mean to you as a director? And how does that affect the filmmaking process? Because a film doesn't just stop after it's shot, right? You need to market it, you need to get it into cinemas. So how does that impact everything?
Quite amazing to have your movie win an award at the one of the best international fantastic film festival. When I was shooting the movie, I know this is more of a genre movie, more of a thriller than a art house horror movie. So to win an awards at the Brussels International Fantastic Film Festival is very rewarding.
Great.
I have a first movie, my second movie. I all went to the film festivals. One went to San Sebastian. I won the best director at the Brasilia International Film Festival. Going to the film festival, one thing, but watching a movie with hundreds of audience, the feeling of watching your own movie with all the audience together, sitting there, and to see how they react. It is very satisfying. And so when the movie finished, I have all the audience came to me. And I think one woman particularly told me how much she loved the movie. She told me this movie is going to win the award, at least the best audience award. So it's a learning process because they know nothing about the process of filmmaking, but their reaction, their instinct tells you your movie touched them. It's a fantastic feeling. And so later on, we went to Buqiang, another film festival. You feel that your movie is doing something right. It's the end of the movie, people cried. That says the movie somehow worked.
Beautiful. Now, I know you have another film in the works. What other projects are you working on right now? Can we talk about it? Are there new collaborations? Anything that you're excited about?
I'm working on a fantastic story based on a nonfiction. James Zimmerman, the editor's choice at New York Times. It's a train robbery story. It happens in 1923. Over 30 Westerners kidnapped by a group of bandits, particularly World War period, 1923. That's the story I'm working on with my producing partner, Chris Lee. We're writing the script together. The script first draft's already finished. We're working on the revision, and hopefully we get this movie off the ground. Story I'm so excited about because it's about 1923.
Cool, man. And Chris Lee, what's his background? How did you hook up with Chris Lee?
Chris been working with me pretty much on all my films. He produced One Foot Off the Ground and Unspoken. He's also one of the producers. And Chris was the former head of a TriStar Columbia Picture Productions, and he's the guy behind all these movies. As Good as Gets, My Best Friend's Wedding, Legend of Fall, Starship Trooper, all those are great movies. And
Legendary.
Chris is so we make a very good team on the creative side. So now we're writing the script together.
Cool. I'm glad you have a great producing partner there to work with you. Beautiful. Legends of the Fall, one of my favorite, and As Good as It Gets, man. I love that movie today.
Starship Trooper, man. That was a classic.
Yeah, of course. Johnny Rico. Yeah, we love it. Everyone loves it. It's great. Let's switch over. Let's help out the actors. We have a lot of actors listening in. What's the single biggest mistake you see an actor make on set, even those who are technically skilled actors, and how do you fix it as a director?
Okay. I think the most common slip is a lack of a preparation. An actor is highly talented. They still stumble when they are not fully ready for their scene. I always tell my cast that acting is a full-time job. You need to be mentally and physically prepared every single day. And I love actors to improvise. Improvisation to give the actors such a power tool to have. But improvisation has to come naturally. When let's see, I have this line there. I know the line in my heart. I don't need to worry about line. I'm not thinking about the line. I'm thinking about the characters. I think ultimately, movie, you focus on your partner, not yourself. A lot of time actors they're thinking their line. They're not thinking about how other people react to them. You pay attention to the person you have a conversation with. If you pay detail to them all the time, the spontaneous reaction you get is so real. So that's where you get spontaneous moments I was talking about can come out, the conversation you're having. That's because you prepared. You're in the character. So I always encourage actors to be ready. You need to be in the role of a month before we start filming. You really need to put your soul in it. And you have an actor like Zhang Hanyi, right? He's always ready. He's sitting there. He's not even talking to anybody. You thought he have some attitude issues. No, because he's in a role.
Yeah,
So you
he's a
can literally,
professional. Yeah.
you can just shoot him while he was sitting there. I remember my DP said, "Oh, look, the Han Yu, we can actually just shoot it there. Just he doesn't need to do much because he's in a role." So that's the suggestion I would like to give a actor. You need to get into the role. You need to talk to the director. You need to have a conversation with the director. I like to spend time with the actors. I like to know my actors because when you cast someone, ultimately it's not exactly what you had imagined. You need to adjust the script a little bit. I don't mind they change the line as long as they're in the role. They change a little bit. I'm okay with that because I'm a writer myself. I also particularly want an actor to come up with something. But again, that's where you need to talk to the director. You need to constantly have a conversation. I with Michael Cullis and Jay Gable, or the actor Zhang Hanyu, we're constantly having conversation. And I remember Michael was always writing me email, ask me, "Are you okay if I was changing one tiny line?" Of course, he's the one playing the role. I want him to change. I want you to come up with something new. But you can only do that if you're in the role, inside the world of the character.
Do a lot of preparation. Immersion of character is key. Okay, you're a self-made man, you're a self-made actor, you had no one in your family to give you any kind of help in the beginning. For actors aiming to get noticed by top agencies, get into big films, big projects, what's the one thing you do in order to have directors and agents remember you so that you can be a part of those films?
Well, yeah, I guess it's a little bit different. If you're in China, your states are completely different. And I happen to be acting in both countries. I think in Hollywood, you need to get an agent. To be able to get an agent, you need to be able to act. A lot of the time, agent may ask you to audition. And you audition, that's where you start your career. Number one thing is you have to know your skills. I think you're a good actor, you will hit there. You think, oh, I'm just good looking man. I'm just going to go there to try my luck. No, you're going to fail. Every director like me, I look at every videos, the audition videos, and sent by the casting director. Casting director also, that's what they do, right? They really know how to get the right actors. But number one thing is that performance. You need to perform well. You need to be right for the role, but you need to know how to act. I would just say, polish your acting skills, go to acting classes, constantly working, and you'll eventually get there. But in terms of networking, I'm not really sure networks would do any better. A lot of time I get bothered by hanging out with the actors because I know they have a different agenda. I don't
also
care.
get bothered.
Right, I don't care about you're an actor. I just care about. It has to be the right moment. If I'm doing a casting auditioning, of course, I see someone, whoa, you have the right look. Can you just audition for me? I will have a casting director calling you. That's fine. But most time you're not looking for a character. You do it through the right channel. You go through the casting. It took even on the Unspoken, it took a while to find the right actors. I had 3 casting director. I had a one in LA, another one in Winnipeg, and I have one casting director in China. It's very hard to particularly casting the one of my characters, the deaf actors. I want a real deaf actor to play the deaf daughter, and it took us a long time to find the right actor, but eventually I found it. Yeah, I would just say, go to acting classes and find agents, number one, and you go from there.
Funny when you say actors annoy you. I think actors, most of them, they don't understand that. I think they don't understand that when they meet directors or producers or writers or casting directors, oftentimes people that are at networking events and we are a part of production, we don't want to be... There's kind of some pressure that comes from the actor towards you when they know that you're in a position to help them or give them something. Or it's
I think being an actor is almost like a model. You want to be seen by a director, by producers, director, agent, whatever. Whenever you have a chance, you want to do that. I think you do film festival actually can be a good way to go to. That's particularly a Sundance. You do meet agents that are going there, producers. But, you like to be seen. I understand that. But at the end of the day, I'll come to your performance, if you can act or not.
Yeah. I also want to mention an actor, like you said, they have their own agenda. Our agenda as filmmakers is to fulfill the intent of the script and the vision of the director. That's our agenda. We want to make a bloody good film that transcends time. We don't want people to go to the cinema, watch it, and then they're done. They never think about it or talk about it. That's the goal of every filmmaker, at least I believe it should be. But actors, they're not thinking like that. They're thinking, I need a job and I want to be seen and I want to get that job.
For me, making movies is my passion. You want the good actor. You want the right actor to play your role. The writer, director, actor, in a certain way, are exactly the same. We're on the same page. We all want to do something interesting, finding the right project to make the right movie. I spend a lot of time meeting people, try to get investor invest into my movies. But I prefer to spend time on my own at a coffee shop writing my script. That's something I always feel like satisfying. Sitting in a coffee shop with my laptop, start writing my story. That's the part I really enjoy the most.
I love it. I feel that filmmaking energy coming out of the camera and just captivating me right now. I get fired up. Yeah, let's go to some cafes, man. Let's write some scripts. I love it. Okay, so when you do meet an actor, what impresses you most when you do meet the actor? And what can you recommend to meeting high-profile people like yourself at networking events?
I guess you have to, know them and just be who you are. Humility is so important. Most people don't like cocky guys, like men, actors, like feel like I'm an actor. I learned that from lesson. I was a bit of a cocky, when I was in LA, because you do martial arts. A lot of the stunt guys do have the kind of attitude like that.
I think we're all like that at some point. Yeah,
we all have or you walk on the street ready for a fight because
tough guy.
I guess being an Asian in the States, you overdone it, and you just more, particularly me, I'm more sensitive. I don't have the kind of a culture. Grew up in the States, you're in China, you are Chinese. What I'm saying is being humble. Like what Bruce Lee said, being humble. Always learning process. Whatever you do, being an actor, being a writer, being a director, you always learn everything from your personal experience. Whatever you experience, whatever you meet, whatever you see, you always learn something. And that's one of the reasons a lot of director or actor turn directors, because they know life. Many great actors have a life experience, not like they just go to acting school one day, become an actor. Life experience is so important for being an actor and being a writer and being a director. And you just need to have that kind of open mind, open-minded attitude, accept new things, learn something from life.
Yeah, take the position of a learner and a student always. Less cockiness, more humility, and that'll see you well in the eyes of others. Sometimes actors are cast for physical skills, not for acting, right? Sometimes we need specialists. So those guys are probably going to be less absorbed into the world of dramatic performance. They're going to be less immersive in character. How do you get the best performance from someone who isn't naturally dramatic?
Well, that's something you can do with the editing, something you can do with camera, and... But of course, as a director, I will not go in that direction unless I have to. And
of course.
And for example, in Unspoken, so whenever there's a character without line, so our production try to get pick someone from the background to play the character, and I found it many times got wasted on those non-professional actors, because a professional actor know the rhythm. They know the beats. To be able to work with the actor like that, it takes a lot of shots. I think there's one character I remember in my movie. It just supposed to be walking towards the camera. You just can't really do it. I said, you're walking towards the camera until the camera, you almost touch the camera and you move away. But even that simple movements, it took me 8 shots. You need to providing a atmosphere. I turn on the camera without even letting them know, and just get the real moments while they're rehearsing. When the camera's on, they get nervous when they're not professional.
Yeah, cool. Fantastic. So keep the camera rolling. Don't let them know. And
exactly.
Get the best, get them natural, in their natural state, get them. All right, we're going to talk about something that's a hot topic, AI, and the end of the world, or the brave new world. Which is the future of the film industry? So is AI going to end the world, or is it going to create a brave new one for all of us filmmakers? What's going to happen in your opinion?
I don't think AI is going to ruin the industry. I think it's going to help the industry. I see it more in a positive way. Same thing. What's the difference using green screen, right? Some people is going to lose a job. Even using green screen, you still have a lot of people losing their jobs. What's the point of using CGI? I think what AI can do is it's not going to replace everything. from the AI stuff I've been experienced, but it's gonna help filmmakers. And some of the complicated scene, some of the big scene can be probably, helped by AI, save the money, save the budget. Filmmaker always have to cancel certain scene because we don't have enough budget for the movie. But I do think that's where AI comes in. I think AI eventually is going to replace CGI, but not going to replace actors. You still want to see actors. You want to see a real face. I can always tell when there's AI image, it has to be based on something. Even the AI has to base on the data they have, right? They collected. And so I'm actually, in a way, kind of working on a project, probably using AI to help me to get my vision out. I don't know how AI is going to work. So it's exciting. On the other hand, it's scary. You just have to be open-minded because there's nothing you can do. That's the future. I'm open-minded towards it, so I'm gonna try to test it, see how how does it work. It may work out beautifully. Who knows?
Great. And are you using A writing for anything script-wise or production-wise at the moment?
Script, it doesn't really help me that much. I do use AI to translate the script, and then I do polishing based on the translation. You can't using AI for everything. It's okay for something, will save you a lot of time. I do see AI as more like a time-saving device. It's scary, but on the other hand, what can you do? You can't stop it. You have to embrace it. You have to figure out the way how to work the AI.
Find a way to work with it.
Particularly in China. Exactly, particularly in China.
Yeah, China's a whole different story. I have so many people reaching out to me, asking me, Troy, we can use AI, come and do this, do that, do this. Actually, I feel like there's more opportunity coming towards me because of the creation of AI. So it's difficult and it's tricky and it's a brave new world, I suppose. So I also look towards it positively, and I recommend that everybody try to embrace it and try to understand as much about it as soon as possible. Let's switch over to the business side of things. Practical, career-focused advice. Funding a film is always a challenge, okay? And if you could help everyone out there with your experience, how do you source financing for your projects? What are your go-to tips?
If your parents are rich, you have to convince your parents to invest. Many filmmakers are like that these days in China. Whatever way you can do, whatever method you use to get the money, just go ahead and do it. It's a different time. I think now many movies are funded by companies, right? And those companies are mostly in China. Let's see, all the studios, they're looking for commercial movies. They need to make money. And then you have a smaller company who's more focused on the independent movie, art house, indie movies. I just came back from Macau. I was involved as a mentor at the IFC International Film Camp. One of the sections we're talking about the helping young filmmaker to raise money. I think there's all kinds of a grant you can apply, like the Macau one. We give a 300,000 Hong Kong dollars to filmmaker to make short movies, and you go from there. You go make your short movie, you show your short movie, the movie's good, and you show it to a studio or investor, and they like the movie. They may go for it. They may go fund the movie because they can see visually what you can do about the movie. And another way is to go to a film festival, and a lot of a smaller film festival in China as well, like First, what's it called, First, and you have a Pingyao, Shanghai International Film Festival, and Beijing International Film Festival. You go there and you get to meet all the company, and they're there, and you just apply for that. I think that's probably an easier way to get your movie, get your project recognized. And instead of individually knock on the door of all the company, and most of the time you can't even get to you can't even get to them, and because they're not going to talk to you if you don't know anybody. Going to film festivals it's a good thing. A lot of programs can help you to raise money, at least get your movie out there, and people can check you out. My time was a little bit different. It was like the Wild West. You go to a company who's got nothing to do with filmmaking, and they have money. They convince them to invest into a movie. You just pitch a story. I remember my first movie. I had lunch with my investor, and I pitched the idea during the lunch for 3 minutes, and he liked the story. I said, let's go for it. So that's how I got my first funding for my first movie. There's so many platforms these days in China and internationally. You need to go there, go out, submit your movie, try your best. I think these days you just have to keep doing things. When you're doing short movie, you just have to, I just tell the filmmaker, you have to keep doing it until one day you're going to find somebody. If your project is good, you have to keep trying. Without trying, nobody knows about it, right? It's almost like the stuff's waiting for you somewhere, but you don't go through that route. You're not going to meet those those people. So try everything, get out there and get people to recognize you. And I think eventually, if the movie is good, if the project is good, I think you will find an investor.
Great. That's a nice answer, man. That's really good just to go through that and rewind the video and play that whole section over again. What advice would you give filmmakers trying to break into the industry today?
Write a script, come up with a good story. I think writing a script, not just about the story, it's interesting. It has to be commercial enough. Ultimately, movie has to make money, right? The investor invests into a movie expecting profits. And you need to write your script, find a good story, try to do it with a smaller budget. Don't try to make a movie you know it's not going to be finished, for a certain amount of money. So you need to, when you write a story, have that thing in your mind. Try to reduce the location, reduce the character. Try to make the movie can be shot in a certain amount of money, in a certain amount, with a certain budget. If you do like a big movie, it may take a long time to raise money. Starts from something small.
Okay, keep it realistic, yeah? Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's give our action guys, because we have some action people watching, tuning in as well. We're going to have a lot of stunt coordinators, action directors come onto the show. You have a strong martial art background, having similar upbringing and schooling in opera schools, such as Jackie Chan's history and Yuan Heping's history. Digging deeper into action choreography, as a director, when you step onto set, how do you plan for complex fight sequences so that you get exactly what you want and every movement is readable, cinematic, and dramatic?
I think you need to do previous. Like what we did on the Unspoken. I mean, you worked on it. You came off the, previous. And you need to do that. I think it just saves a lot of time. Also, like, it's also build up a trust. It's a way to communicate. And there's always adjustments. Before we do storyboard, we do exactly how we want to storyboard, how the characters going to fight. You talk to the director agrees to it with your plan. Then you shoot the previous. You get the right actor to do it. And also keep in mind, location will change. Things will change. Like when I was talking about Unspoken, the location, the stairwell provided us. Remember, we're talking about you design the scene in Unspoken. The locations are changing. It's not exactly the same location. Also, the actors are, if you're working with a stunt person, right, you have to understand, of course, you choose the right person to be the stunt guy for the main character. But ultimately, I think a stunt is also require performance, not just you can do stunts. You need to act as well. You need to get into the character. You need to understand the character, what the characters can do and the character cannot.
It's quite an understated thing. When I went to LA, the emotional depth of the stuntmen that I saw over there when they were just shooting previs and how they were able to dramatically perform was quite surprising. I didn't think it was taken so seriously, but they're good actors, man. They're good actors.
Well, a lot of the time, you do previs, right? It's not just about the action scene. It's about the emotion, the feeling of it. Connect with the director. A lot of the time, because you so focus on the emotion, you forget about the fighting part. You don't care about the fighting part, but the emotion works, the rhythm, the beat works. It's actually more important than the fighting style a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's really important. What's one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring action director or fight choreographer?
I think being a stunt coordinator or, we call it action directors in China, choreographer, you have to think as a director. You cannot think, oh, I'm just doing action scene. You are the director for that scene. You need to know the shots. I sometimes move my camera. I follow the character. What does the character do, right? And the character get up, and the camera goes up. Whatever the character do, the camera just follows. I think as when you design a fight, you need to have that kind of a similar camera movements, and you need to follow the character. You need to follow the actors, and you need to thinking not just the fighting visually. I think visual language is so powerful. You can design a beautiful fighting, but you shot it poorly. It doesn't come out that right. Action director, you didn't know how you need to learn how to use your camera angles, how to cheat. Ultimately, movie is a magic. How to use a camera to cheat is something I think every stunt coordinator need to learn.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, they have to understand camera language.
Also sound. What sound can change the whole atmosphere, Without the sound, the action scene doesn't have the similar effect. The adding of the sound, the ambience, change everything.
Yeah, sound changes everything. Sometimes when I'm designing fight sequences, actually, I just have the screen black and I just have already the ambience. That's it.
Yeah.
I start from the ambience. Before I create visuals, I just create ambience. Interesting. So we're on the same page. I love that. Fantastic. Let's switch it up a little again. Who are your favorite directors in film right now?
And that's a very hard question to answer.
That's why I picked it.
It's I don't know right now. I have so many director I admire.
Who's the first one that comes to mind? Like, bang.
I mean, current director or including everything?
Just current. Like, who's hot on your list right now? They make a movie, you're like, yes, I have to go and see that. I love this guy.
I would probably say Chris Nolan, someone you can learn from. You're watching his movie, he's always challenging himself, always something different. And he just be able to work in Hollywood and to have his own voice and his distinguished style. And Oppenheimer is a very hard movie to make, but you just pull it off.
It's incredible, isn't it? When you watch his film, that's ambience. The film itself is an ambient film. You watch it, you know immediately whoever made this film, that guy is a deep thinker and he's an intellect.
He's also a writer-director. He writes his own script.
Is there a dream project for you? What would it be?
Well, so far, Peking Express is my dream project. I think that's the project I really want to get it done. Because that movie, if you read the book, it reads like a fantasy book. Has all the flavors and layers of that time. And it's also funny. Another project I wanted to do is actually Ming Dynasty, which is a century, a warrior movie, swordsman movie about an assassin.
I really hope both of them get made. I'm pretty sure The Express is going to be made. I can't say too much, but I'm banking on that one being made very soon. So good luck and congratulations on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so what's a moment on set from memory that still makes you laugh or shakes you up when you think about it?
We have this one scene shot in the Chinese restaurant. Two Chinese eating Chinese food at a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown in America. It's just very personal to me. The whole story about it's a fortune cookie. Fortune cookie doesn't exist in China. Only exists in American Chinese culture. And that scene almost didn't make it to the final cut.
With the Golden Horse winner, Zhang Hanyu.
Exactly.
The best actor in China. Crazy. Okay. Daming, we're nearing the end. What's one thing that you wish you knew when you started your career?
One thing I really regretted, I wasn't be able to continue my studying in the States. I went to the Beijing Film Academy. I studied film. I started, acting, right away jump into acting career. I wish I can study. If I have a chance, I would study literature. I would study law to understand more. And study math. I wish I can study something completely different. That'll give you a different aspect. Gives you a different perspective. I would do more. I think that's something I would probably change. Being more earnest.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah, I know with my own filmmaking now, I spend more time talking to entertainment lawyers, trying to figure things out. So when you say you wish you studied law, I get it. Yeah, I wish I did as well. Yeah, that leaves me thinking a lot. I feel like I wish I did more too. So we better get to work and we better do as much as we can now to make up for it.
Absolutely. We're getting old. We need to make up.
We got to move ass.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, where can people watch Unspoken and follow more of your work?
It's supposed to be coming out toward the end of the year, toward the end of December.
Towards the end of December 2025.
2025, exactly. It's a winter movie. Shot in the wintertime. It's going to be released in wintertime.
So you'll get the full immersive experience. Great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Daming, what about your social media handles? What if people want to follow you? Where can we find you online?
They can follow me on Facebook. Occasionally use Facebook, but not much. Recently, I try to stay away from social network and just really focus on writing and experience life instead of showing my life to other people.
Okay, so you're public, you're on Facebook. I hope you don't get 1 million people adding you. For the actors out there, don't go just adding Daming, okay? Think about it. All right, Daming, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Working with you and hearing your insights has been absolutely incredible. I've had a lot of fun today. I'm sure listeners at every level, from aspiring filmmakers to seasoned pros, are walking away with inspiration and actionable strategies, learning from you and hearing. I think what I love most about today's conversation is just the nostalgic elements of your history. It's crazy to go from opera in China to the States, performing, acting. You worked on Beverly Hills Ninja. We didn't even talk about that. You're in Beverly Hills Ninja. Would you like to talk about that quickly before we end up?
That was actually one of a project produced. It was one of Chris Lee's project, and
Wow.
He cast me in that role to play the head of a Japanese yakuza based in LA, some young yakuza boss. And it was. I remember partying with Chris Farley. This guy's crazy. I'm telling you, he's over like 300 pounds, but he's extremely flexible. I asked him, have you done martial arts? He said, no. I mean, he did. He studied karate, I do believe. He is very athletic.
300
How much
pounds.
weight he had. No, 300 pounds, exactly. It was fun. He's a great guy. Too bad he died.
Yeah,
And
that's
died
sad.
young, died at the age of young. That was a very sad story. But that was shot in LA, and it was fun shooting. You know, you can't go wrong with the comedy. It's always fun shooting.
Chris Farley, man, amazing. Yeah, so crazy, flexible, athletic guy, 300 pounds. That's actually one of my childhood favorite films. You know, I always loved martial arts when I was younger, so to see Chris Farley being as big as he was and running around in the film, we laughed a lot. One last thing, I always like to ask our podcast guests a closing question. What is your golden advice? The one thing that you can give for actors or stunt guys out there listening to help them take their business to the next level?
Polishing your skills, number one, and know how to do a self-marketing. I think these days marketing is so important. And one thing I never learned how to market myself. I'm very shy when it's come to that. I think these days you're forced to do that. You have to do that. I think you need to know how to market yourself and put yourself somewhere and get people to see you. I think that's my advice.
Great. So polish your skills, immerse yourself in skill development, make sure that your marketing, your publicity, your online presence is all up to date. So for those listening, if you guys want to learn more about publicity, marketing, your online presence, you can head over to www.moviemartialarts.com. We have an online course there, training actors, helping them to do that. Check out the description below for anything you need to learn about today's conversation. Daming, we've had really a lot of fun. It's been nice talking to you. I look forward to working with you in the future.
You too.
I want to help you make your films happen.
Looking forward to it.
And I want as many people as possible to go out and see Unspoken, check out the trailers, get on there, comment, like, share. We want to get that film out there. And it's a beautiful film, man. And Jung Han-yu, I think you and Jung Han-yu are a great director-actor couple. I think it's lovely, man. Great job. And Michael Cudlitz, by the way, if you're watching this, Michael, I'm a big fan of you from The Walking Dead. All right. Love you, bro.
All right,
it's been
thank
great.
you.
See you in the next one.
Yeah, next one. See ya.
Hit subscribe, follow along, click the video to my right on this screen and learn more practical exercises, career tips, help you stand out and land work. I want you guys doing what you love, and that's what this channel's all about. So stay cool, check that video out, and I'll see you in the next one.